Anything else?
Yes, they're saying no. So
Nope, nope, nothing here, nothing. It's brilliant. It should be working though, because I can see it. Dropped 0.
yeah, I just muted mine, so I'm just kind of looking at the.
Yeah, 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 at the screen there. I have it muted as well, just in case it starts playing really, really loudly. I mean, we can give it a minute or two just to see if it takes a bit longer, or we can just start it again
My,
somewhere else.
oh, there it goes. Now it's going.
Is it going live now?
Yeah, I just saw it's got me. I've got a progression bar on mine right now.
Really? Wow, it's not
Yeah.
showing on me. Oh yeah, there we go.
Maybe it is. Maybe it is a buff. Maybe it's buffered.
It's
There we
buffering.
go. Oh, good. Okay, I think they can hear us now.
Brilliant. Okay, at
Can
least
you guys? Can everybody hear us? I'm looking at the chat window right now. Can everybody hear us?
if there is if it's sending, I think there's gonna be a big delay. There.
Oh,
I think it's
all right.
working. Brilliant. All right, that's all we need. We don't need anything else.
All right. This is
So
going to be very informal.
it's gonna be very formal because it's gonna be the first one, right? And
Yeah.
then now that we know that this shit works, hopefully we can do this again. Brilliant. All right, so guys can hear us. I'm gonna let them know that there is a small delay. Okay, so I wanted to we covered this topic first. I called it the red pill balance.
Well, hey, maybe we should just start by like telling everybody what we plan to do with these as a monthly thing.
Yep. You want to go first?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. So I had it was kind of my idea. So I guess I'll say I had a lot of people asking me if I wanted to do like a podcast of some sorts, and I could do a podcast, but I find that when I'm composing ideas or I'm coming up with things, it's better if I write because it helps me sort of clarify things. That and I simply just don't have the time with my work schedule and everything else. A lot of people think that this is what I do for a living, and it's not, not by a long shot. So that said, I think I do have enough time to do a once a month type thing, and if people want to post comments on this, I think I'm going to end up putting this as the next blog post, so people can listen to the recording of this. And then if they have comments about it, I was thinking about maybe doing this once a month and just sort of cover topics that that are going on either in the manosphere or in the world, or just the hot topics of the red pill and things like that. So so just wanted to let everybody know before we get started that that's the initial intent of this.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, I personally like your website, the blog. I have all the books. I told you I keep sending free books to people. I keep buying those books and I keep sending them to my friends. Whenever I hear like they're having trouble with women, or they're not doing very well with their lives because of women and stuff like that. And even when you try to convince them, like you said, I think in one of the books that you wrote it at the beginning, that it's easier to read some things in your spare time without having to confront some of the people. So I send them
Right.
those books, and it changes their lives. I mean, some of them tell me that they read it like the Bible initially. So it's that important. So I really like your message, and I think even when I was in the MGTOW sphere, I'm gonna say that we had a lot of commonalities. We agreed on a lot of the things that we were discussing, and I've always been reading your blog ever since I started like being hardcore, let's say, in the manosphere. So I think we can discuss the same subjects. Come, to either agreeing with some things or disagreeing on other things. And I think, I don't want to have someone that agrees with me on absolutely everything, because
That was that was initially why I approached you about this, is because I know you're not going to agree with everything I say, and that's how you hash things out. That's how you get things done, with an open discourse and an open forum. So you know, that's, I mean, I can go on the Christian McQueen show, and I love Christian to death, but, you know, we are going to agree on pretty much everything. So it's just going to be me talking about the book or principles of hypergamy, or it's going to be, you know, something else. But I kind of want, you know, a little bit of push and pull, and that's why I approached you.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thanks, man. You know, I'm going to just show your website for a second, just so that, you know, anyone who hasn't seen the website yet, there is the books on the right side here, and you see some of the blog posts. I mean, many of the blog posts are used in creating the books. I mean, the first book was basically most of the blog posts from year 1, which you have free on the website, The Best of Rational Male Year 1.
Right.
I think it's a great website. It's not just, you know, on female nature, it's not just on men. You discuss a variety of issues, and I like just going there and just reading whatever you have to say. And when I make comments, we have people that hate and attack whatever you say that you don't substantiate with evidence, which is nice, you know. So yeah, I like this a lot. Right, so it seems to be working pretty well, the stream at least. So let's move on to the topic, right?
Okay.
So we want to talk about red pill balance. The idea is how you live your life as a red pill man, right? And how you move on with the realities that you hear at hand. So I mean, when I was in the MGTOW scene, there were a variety of ways. Some of them I agreed with, some of them I disagreed with, and you definitely have your own take when it comes to these things. So let's start with you, right? Because I believe you're being approached by younger men who ask for personal advice on, you know, what they should do with their lives, and knowing what they know right now, how they should move on. I mean, what would you give as advice to any young man? And then we can move on to, let's say, older men.
I would take it on a case-by-case instance, first of all. One of the things that I have been very reluctant to do on The Rational Male is to be prescriptive in anything. I know that I do have the 9 iron rules of Tomasi on there, and they're in the book as well. I think those are just well-rounded maxims, for lack of a better word. I think that those would be the first place that I would start. And I would certainly say, just as a general advice, to be as red pill as possible, to free your mind up from thinking in I guess from a MGTOW point of view, it would be called gynocentric ways. I usually call that the feminine imperative. I usually call that or a feminine based social order, which is gynocracy in a different term. But I think that a lot of terms, particularly in the manosphere, are sort of interchangeable. But just for lack of a better word, the gynocracy, I think unplugging yourself from the matrix, going red pill, would be the first step, and to become sensitive to the things that are around you, as far as having a red pill lens. Seeing things in the media, seeing how men are treated, seeing how women are treated, seeing a lot of the entitlements, and seeing how hypergamy is, the root of a lot of legislation. It's the root of our intersexual dynamics when it comes to just men and women personally. I would also say to look at things from a social standpoint too, and see how intergender dynamics work that way. So I think that the very first step, of course, is to educate yourself and to unplug yourself and to sort of, I guess, free your mind in a sense. I hate to keep using all the matrix terms, but they're so applicable that I really can't think of much else. But I think that would be the first part. And once you have developed that, once you've internalized a red pill mentality, once you have made that part of who you are, I think that the natural next step is, what do you want to do with that? And how do you want to live your life in a red pill paradigm? I have a post called New Hope, New Hope on, it's in the second book, and it's also on the website. So you can either buy the book or you can read it for free. But I tell a lot of guys that when they go red pill, especially after they've been conditioned to be so blue pill and to be so appeasing to women and to live, they don't know any other way to live, is what I'm saying. They don't know any other way to live except to be the nice blue pill guy, to be a beta guy, to be, I mean, we're talking about numbers. There's alpha guys too, of course, but I was going to say that there's the number of guys who are, you know, blue pill conditioned and you know, just ready to be the perfect beta husband or whatever for the rest of their lives. When you tell them that all that is bullshit, and when you tell them that all of that is, you know, it's been a fantasy that, you know, reality and observable facts and observable statistics and observable, you know, provable elements of their lives is fantasy, then you get really depressed and you get really nihilistic and you think, God, how can I possibly live in another way? How can I possibly find hope in this hopelessness? Because, you know, I can't believe that, you know, they either reject it, I guess, you know, the red pill dynamics, or else they go nihilistic and they get very depressed about it. And I think a lot of what I've been doing recently is writing about, hey, you know what, you don't have to be depressed. There's I mean, yeah, you're going to be, sure, and there's going to be anger, and there's going to be depression, and there's going to be nihilism, and there's going to be you know, a lot of inner turmoil, I guess, because everything that you've been brought up to believe about women, everything you've been, you know, when you talk about, even just from a societal level, when I listen to Hillary Clinton talk about how she's going to close the wage gap, you know, when you realize that that's just bullshit and a fantasy, then you're like, well, where do I go from here? And I think that's what confuses a lot of guys when they get on board with the red pill and they read what I've put out and they change. I was just on the phone with a guy from Brazil who wants to do a documentary on the red pill and the manosphere, and very sincere about it and very motivated and really wants to do something like that. But the first thing out of his mouth was like, "Thank you for saving my life. You know, I love you, man." You know? And that's great and that's nice to hear. And but it's like, what do you do with it at that point? And I think that's where a lot of friction between MGTOWs and red pill guys come in, because when I was at the Man in Demand conference, one of the first things I asked, I said, "What does the red pill mean to you?" And if you listen to that audio, you'll hear the whole discussion. But what does the red pill mean to you? How has it changed your life? And we just sort of went around the room and talked about things, and people sort of gave me their definition of what they're doing. And then the topic of MGTOWs came up, and I said, well, you know, in a sense, if you're red pill, you're already MGTOW, because you have emancipated yourself from the fantasy or from the blue pill world. So you are able to see and live in a different way that most men aren't capable of. Like I said, this guy from Brazil was talking to me about how he was trying to express some red pill ideas, or he would talk about something that I wrote about in my book with just his you know, average friends who are, you know, that he knows socially, and they're very, very resistant to it. They fight to stay in that system. They fight to stay blue pill, because I think that on some level, if that all that stuff isn't true, if that reality isn't something that they can sort of reconcile, then they get nihilistic. And I think it's easier to stay blue pill and to stay in that kind of fog than it is to really wake yourself up and then have to be as creative and as intelligent and innovative and to live your life in a red pill way. So once a man becomes red pill, what does he do from there? And I think that's where a lot of separation happens between MGTOWs and just, for lack of a better term, red pill guys who maybe they're married, maybe they have a girlfriend and they become red pill. There's so many guys that find my blog and they are already married, or there's on Reddit, there's a married red pill Reddit there. And a lot of guys are saying it's saved my marriage. You know, now I'm the man. You know, now I'm somebody that my wife respects. And maybe they use dread on her. Maybe they just started saying, you know what, I'm done with the bullshit, but I'm still married to this person, so I've got to find a way to live a red pill life with this woman. I've got to find a way to be a red pill employee to a female boss. I've got to be, I've got to find some way to be a red pill man with my mother, with my daughter, my sisters, my, whatever. It's not just about, who you're fucking, it's about dealing with women and dealing with a reality in a new sense. So I understand from it. Like I said, I certainly have much more in common with MGTOWs than I ever will with MRAs, because I really think that MRAs are fundamentally attached to an egalitarian, equalist mindset, whereas I know MGTOWs are not. So,
yeah.
So I mean, that's what I say is like, then it becomes a case by case basis. So if I'm talking to a guy who is a single kid who's 20 years old, I'm going to hand him preventive medicine, and I'm going to say, this is what you can expect. What do you think you should do? Like I said, I'm not interested in making men better men. I'm interested in men making themselves better men with better information and better, education and understanding of the reality that they are actually in, as opposed to this fog. So, if that guy says, well, you know what, I'm not going to deal with women, I'm just going to be a MGTOW, fine. If that's the direction you want to go, great. That doesn't necessarily mean that everybody's going to want to do that, because a lot of guys have that idealism.
But what I was going to say to this is that, I mean, from my point of view, I mean, I was a MGTOW, and I was getting into disagreements within the community because I wanted to deal with women. I had no personal issues with women. I didn't care, like, women are as they are, and that's I think where the majority of the problems lie. Like you said, is what you do with this information. Like they called it red pill malaise, red pill rage, blah blah blah. They use so many terms to describe just people not wanting to deal with this new reality, right? Because once you accept it, and it's not a difficult concept, right? People say that you should look into it a bit more and overanalyze it and stuff like that. Yes, of course. I mean, the more you know, the better it is. But the concepts are not difficult to understand, especially if you make the first step into, reading them up and, doing a bit of research on your own. And then it's how you proceed from that. How do you move on? And with many of the guys that I was engaging in the MGTOW community, they didn't have a problem with, female nature, and as it is, they didn't care that women, were hypergamous, that, the system was gynocentric. It's not that you don't care, but, you're one person. You can't really change it. You can only change how you deal with your own life and how you move on with your life. And that's what I was trying to tell them, just, accept these things, accept the red pill way, and then just move on with your life in whatever way you please. I didn't even care that some people were telling me they wanted to get married. I was like, well, do whatever the fuck you want. I'm not going to tell you what you're going to do with your life. I'm telling you it's a bad deal, right? It can potentially end up badly for you, especially with the laws and as they are, especially the United States, the United Kingdom, where I'm residing at the minute. So, just make your own decision. If you want to go forward with it, yeah, okay, I told you so. Do whatever the fuck you want. If you're happy with living your life in that way, then live your life in whatever way you please. So I was a lot more liberal in my message, because I was thinking, if you listen to this, if you accept this, if you're not angry with whatever the situation is, then do whatever the fuck you want. Even within the MGTOW community, we have people who are married. They call them awakened while married, right? And they would say, if I wasn't married, I would be a man going his own way. But since I'm married now, I'm going to do the best with what I know, with the red pill way. And I don't think there is a distinction between red pill and MGTOW. I mean, in the way that they understand the red pill. It's how they live their lives. That's where the problem lies, and that's where all the disagreements come in.
Right. Well, when I was hearing a lot of the criticisms of a lot of MGTOWs will come to my comment threads and essentially say the same thing, or just rattle off the same. Don't get married. Don't do this. Don't. And I'm like, well, okay, that's fine, but how does that help a guy who's already married? How does that help a guy who who has been divorced or is in the process of the divorce. When I was listening to the exchange between Paul Elam and Roosh, the whole dynamic was about, well, you know, if you don't want to give advice that's going to bring guys down, you want to make sure that everybody is warned that they're going to deal with divorce rape, or they're going to deal with this, all the downsides, every downside you could possibly imagine. And there's a lot of downsides, and there's a lot of legislation, and there's a lot of the yes means yes consent laws and things like that. There is a risk, sure. I just saw a story on a grade school kid who was just staring at a girl and was pulled from the class. I don't think he was expelled, but he was certainly suspended for sexual harassment, just for staring at a girl. So yeah, there's a lot. When you see those kinds of things, I can certainly understand that there's a fear, or there's a concern that if you engage with a woman at all, you run the risk of so many downsides. But again, how does the red pill and how does all of that fit in to dealing with women in that context? Because I don't see how you can just simply, unless you're going to lock yourself away and be a MGTOW hermit somewhere, or go monk mode forever, you're going to deal with a woman. You're going to deal with your mom. You're going to deal with your aunt. You're going to deal with your sister. You're going to deal with your grandmother. And I see a lot of guys who want to say, well, we're just going to cut ourselves off, and we're just not going to do anything. We're never going to deal with women ever again. And if they come along, great. If not, then we're going to protect ourselves, and this is just how it has to be. And I understand the motivation for that, and I understand the want for all that. But to me, it doesn't seem realistic. And it doesn't seem realistic in the sense that you're never going to talk to another woman, or you're never going to engage with another woman. Yeah. And I think that comes from a lot of the hardline MGTOWs. And yeah, that's fine. If that's what you want to go do, and that's the choices that you're making for yourself. But that doesn't mean that that's the reality for everybody else. There's guys that want to engage with women, and they're still going to be red pill, and they're going to do it from that perspective, and they're going to protect themselves as best that they can. Life is fucking risk. So you're going to have to deal with, maybe you're going to have a false rape claim. Well, good. You're going to have to back up off of that, and you're going to have to take that into consideration when you have decided for yourself that the life you want to live is one where you're going to involve yourself with women. So how can you do risk management in a red pill paradigm? And I think that's another area where MGTOWs and red pill guys, such as it is, are going to have some sort of disagreement, or they're going to have to come to some sort of understanding that there are going to be guys such as yourself who say, you know what, fuck it, I want to date chicks, I want to get laid, fine. I want to be married, or I'm already married. How can I possibly go MGTOW, right? Well, maybe you can't, but you can certainly adopt a lot of the education from MGTOW. You can certainly adopt a lot of the education that the red pill and the manosphere in general is teaching you and showing you. So how do you decide to incorporate that into your own personal space? Yeah, like I said, I'm not interested in a lot of clones of Rollo Tomasi running around. Okay, I want you to be your own dude.
Yeah, and absolutely, that's what I like about your message as well. I didn't care when I got personal messages from people, or when I had Skype conversations with listeners of mine, and they all come to it from a completely different point of view, right? One person would be, very religious, and he would be a hardline MGTOW. So he would tell me, he wants to engage with women, but he's scared of women, and he cannot engage with women unless he's married to women. But because he's a MGTOW, he cannot marry women, therefore he can never engage with women. And I was sitting there, and I was listening. I could see all these dogmas in his head, and I didn't know which one of the three to address. I'm like, just make your own decision, be your own dude, do whatever you want to do with your life. I'm not here to tell you. All I'm telling you is that, this is the information, these are the risks involved, make your own goddamn decision. And I see the manosphere, and even when I was in the MGTOW community, I see the manosphere as a place where there is a lot of information around, and you can read from absolutely every single source. And I don't care which sources you read. I mean, some are better than others, or you know, you can listen to some people and not listen to other people. But as long as you know, take the information in, make an informed decision on your own, then you can only blame yourself about the decisions that you make. And I don't mean like if a woman accuses you of you know, falsely of rape, you know, you're the one to blame. But what I'm saying is that you knew the risk before you went into it. At least you know the risks now. Before you had no concept of them.
Yeah, like guys who find themselves in a divorce situation where they're getting, you know, bent over a barrel. At least they can say they were blue pill before all that happened. You know, at least they've got some, you know, say, hey, you know what, I was ignorant of my, you know, my surroundings. I didn't even know what the manosphere was. In fact, I get a lot of guys who find my site through, generally through Reddit, and I get a lot of guys who are in the middle of a divorce, and they go, I mean, you know what, I didn't even know any of this existed until I started, you know, getting fucked over in the courts. And I found this. Maybe they found the MRA, maybe they found MGTOW, maybe they found just the red pill in general. But they're, you know, at least they've got some sort of, you know, I'm going to say they got a cop out, but at least they can say, hey, well, now my eyes are opened. I'm not going to do that again. I'm not going to deal with this, and I'm going to live with myself as my own mental point of origin. And that was something I wanted to get into here as well, as I think that when it comes to MGTOW and when it comes to red pill awareness, I think that the most important aspect of any of that is to make yourself your own mental point of origin. And by that, I mean that we need to think of ourselves first in a red pill paradigm. So a lot of people say, well, I'm not going to deal with women anymore. Well, good. That you're making yourself your first priority, man. You're making yourself your own mental point of origin. And when it says, you know what, when a guy says, I'm going to start living my life the way I want to live my life, and if that includes women as a complement to that life, then that's fine. I'm not going to make them the focus of it anymore, but if I have a woman that is a complement to it, fine. You know, if that's a risk that I am now aware of. And a lot of people say, well, how can Rollo Tomasi be married? I'm coming up on 20 years of marriage right now, and I have a pretty good marriage by most guys' standards. My wife is still very thin, looks very good, and knows what I need, okay, and provides it. When it came time for me to make a relocation from Nevada to Florida, and then again from Florida back to Nevada, my wife didn't say, well, my friends are here, and my family is here, and my career is here, and there was no discussion. It was just, when are we leaving? You know, because I am her husband and I am the one who's making the decisions, because that is the priority that I have put myself in. I am the first priority in this family, and I take my family into consideration very much, of course, you know, because I have a 18-year-old, soon to be 18-year-old daughter. So, you know, once, and I should say this, once she's out of the house, once she's off to college, then shit's going to change too. And it's still going to be me as the primary, and me as the mental point of origin. So when I'm making a decision, when I'm deciding to do something in my career, when I'm deciding to do something just in general in my life, I think, what am I going to do? And if my wife is supportive of that, great. If she's not, I don't care. You know, and I'm not going to put myself in danger, and I'm not going to put her, you know. I'm not going to say that her input isn't valued. It is, but I'm not going to make a decision based solely on that, and I'm not going to make decisions by putting her or putting my daughter or by putting, you know, my mother or whatever before myself, because I've always been the kind of guy who is about enlightened self-interest. I can't help others until I can help myself first, and that's really the essence of mental point of origin, your own mental point of origin.
I absolutely agree, and I mean, when I was talking to people about what I do in my personal life, the fact that, you know, I was hooking up with random chicks, you know, I would go out, I would enjoy myself, I would bring girls at home. I had hangouts sometimes with guys, live hangouts where I had women at home, and I mean, they were asleep and I was having the hangout on my phone. So it was very random time in my life, especially because I I was still in the process of completely digesting the red pill and just doing and living my life in whatever way I pleased. So they were thinking that maybe either one, you have superpowers, or two, that you have no emotions attached to any of these women. And I wanna put this out there because, you know, I say I don't care, right? You say you don't care and stuff like that, but it doesn't mean you don't care about your woman, you don't have emotions about your woman, right, or anything like that. What it means is that when it comes to making a decision, you know, a decision about your life, a business decision, whatever that might be, then the emotions or whatever, they don't play into it. I try not to keep all of these things separate. And it's always to do with how I want to live my life, how I want to see myself in, you know, the next 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, or, you know, 20 years down the line. If I live that long, which, you know, I try to take it day by day. But we're talking, I try to prioritize myself first. And I keep telling people, you know, we need to be more like women when it comes to these things. Because people still want to see themselves as being the good guys. They don't want to be bad guys. I think there is, I don't know what it is about them. Maybe they've listened to their mothers complain about, you know, things that their fathers did, or maybe they've listened to relatives of theirs, maybe ex-girlfriends. I don't know what it is. And they just don't want to see themselves as a bad guy, which in the last post that you did on The Rational Male, it's kind of like saying getting rid of the beta mindset completely from your head. You shouldn't be thinking along those lines. You need to, you know, think, you said it as an alpha. I think mental point of origin, or just like looking out for yourself, or being, you know, the most important thing in your life, you know, prioritize yourself above everything else, should be what you need to do. I mean, that's how I see it, at least in my life at this point, because I'm young, I'm still planning a lot of things, and I still have goals that I need to achieve. That's how I see it, and that's kind of how I live my life. And you're not invincible. Like, anyone can still hurt you. Anyone, you know, can still cause you either emotional trauma. Some people can still try and manipulate you. And I had a video that was out about a story where 2 girls were telling me, you know, they were pregnant, and I was like, yeah, not really pregnant. People can still try and do these things, but it doesn't mean that you will change the way that you live your life. And that's what I want to push across, that you need to live your life how you want to live your life. And that needs to be, I don't know, you call it mental point of origin. I don't know how else you would like to describe that.
Well, I'm kind of browsing here on the chat while you're talking, but I think a lot of it comes down to I can't keep up with it right now, but I think one of the things is, like I was saying, you know, you can't allow your woman to lead. And the thing is that that idea of allowing, or even using that word allow, already places that woman into a primary spot in your headspace. Okay, I've actually brought this up with Dalrock on a couple of his posts. I mean, if you know anything about Dalrock, he's sort of approaches the red pill from a Christian angle, and a lot of the stuff that he talks about or I guess he sort of criticizes more or less, is women and wives who are already putting themselves as the primary in their relationship before they even have the relationship, before they even have a husband. They are already the primary. They're already putting themselves there. So it's a real bucket of cold water when they encounter a guy who they're very, very attracted to. But the reason that they're attracted to this guy is because he places himself first and he doesn't, toe the line to her. And there is no word called allow. There is no. It's just from the. That's why I call it mental point of origin, because that thought doesn't even enter into it. And it took me a long time to develop that. I'm not like a selfish guy by nature. I'm actually a pretty, easygoing guy who wants to help people. I mean, fuck, I've been doing this, writing red pill stuff since 2001, 2002, and most of the stuff I give away for free on the website. But it took me a long time, and quite honestly, getting into the line of work that I'm in right now helped me develop that, because you kind of have to be an asshole, and you kind of have to be a little bit more watching out for yourself when you're dealing in, liquor imports and doing promos and things like that, and having to be I have to be on all the time in my line of work, whether it's I'm doing something creative or I'm trying to, develop a brand or do something like that. So I kind of had a little bit of help just doing what I do, but there is a sect of guys who say or hope that they can get their wife to allow them to lead, and that, like I said, that was mostly on these religious guys on Dalrock's site that he's criticizing. And I think that they're fundamentally missing the point when it comes down to even just the thought of saying, well, women, you need to allow your man to lead or be the head of the household. Well, if you have to allow him to do that, it already puts her as the primary in that relationship. So that's what I mean when it comes down to mental point of origin, and that's also what I mean when it comes down to internalizing red pill principles. I think I'm a better father now because of the red pill. I think I'm certainly a better husband because of the red pill. I'm definitely just a better man altogether because of the red pill. If that, if a guy wants to be MGTOW and that's the decision he wants to make, and even if he wants to be a very hardline MGTOW, fine, great, but remember, internalize those points, internalize that red pill, invest it and make it somebody, or make it part of who you are.
I mean, let me just say something just so that I can add this point on. Most of the guys from my generation, that is, they come from a point of view that women can do whatever they want to do. They can do whatever they dream about, whatever. Like, right? I don't know how to describe it. This idea. I call that
the fempowerment narrative.
Yes, women can do whatever the fuck they want, and in my head, how I deal with my relationships and how I deal with women in my life, etc., is because I've never come from a traditionalist background. I never had this idea that women cannot just go to uni, or they couldn't vote or anything like that, because I was born, all of these things were already set up. Even my father and stuff like that, they were pretty equalistic when it comes to how they live their lives. And for me, the way that I deal with this mentality is, you want to do whatever the fuck you want, do whatever the fuck you want, right? That is that is what I tell women. Do whatever the fuck you want. I'll do whatever the fuck I want. But if we don't, kind of like work together when it comes to these things, and I don't mean I make allowances for her, but if she doesn't change, let's say, her reality or the way that she lives her life in order to fit into my life, then we just don't work together. And it's never me that makes this steps back in order to allow these women into my life. No, they make allowances for me. I say allowances and shit like that, and people freak out when I use these words. I am foreign, so bear with me. They change their lives. They create time and they come and see me when I have free time. I don't do anything like that. I don't change my life in order to fit into their narrative. That never crosses my mind. But that doesn't mean I push women to do what I want them to do. What I found is that if you just prioritize yourself, if you're strong-headed, if you have your strong opinions and anything like that, women naturally do what they need to do in order to fit into your life, if you're high value stuff for them. And that's the way I describe that is that a woman should only ever be a complement to a man's life, but never the focus of it. And I think that a lot of what you're talking about now comes down to really determining genuine desire on that woman's part. So if a woman wants to fuck you, if a woman wants to be associated with you, she will find ways to be that way, or she won't be there at all. Yeah. And the simple answer, I think that probably the most important part, at least as far as the red pill
and the rational male is concerned is I look for as pragmatic a way to deal with things as I can. So if you want to know what my advice would be to guys who want to pursue women, is make sure that you are dealing with genuine desire and you are not putting yourself into a position where you're chasing after it or you're trying to make something happen that doesn't want to happen. You know what I'm saying? So I think that compliment is, if you are going to pursue women, don't put them as that primary focus, of course. But if you're open to being with them, make sure that you are as pragmatic as you can be with that. That's one of the reasons I say, in the 9 iron rules of Tomasi is that one of those is don't wait for it. And if you're ever waiting to have sex, the sex you have with that woman is never worth the wait, simply because her priorities are not. You are not her top priority. You're not the one that she wants to get with, and any kind of sexual. If I'm with a woman, I want that woman's entire focus to be on me. I want that woman's entire desire to be directed towards me. And if that is even in any way mitigated or in any way, slacked, or I'm trying to say buffered, but if that is in any way, that desire is any way compromised, I would really rather not. I would really just simply say, at that point, yeah, be a MGTOW. Don't deal with it. So I think that when you are dealing with a woman, I think that you need to be as pragmatic as possible from a red pill standpoint.
I'm reading one of the comments from Thor. Niko, that doesn't work for most men, only for top quality males, whatever that means. Mostly just social proofing and the dark triad. Meaning that most of the guys will not be able to get a woman to just, change her ways or whatever, modify herself in order to be with him. I mean, all right, okay. If that woman doesn't change her ways in a manner that you are pleased with, then don't deal with that woman. Fucking move on. I mean, that's how I see it. I mean, I keep saying that the biggest strength when it comes to a man engaging with women comes to in your willingness to walk away, right? You should be willing, and that woman should feel that you're willing to walk away. And it's not a threat. It's not like you're not bluffing or anything like that. It's like, okay, yeah, you did this, fuck off. That's it. Yeah. As simple as that.
And you don't even have to be an asshole about it. You can just simply be pragmatic and not return phone calls and just go dark and just simply cut yourself off and pursue a better prospect. If that's the case, or have some, if not, who cares? It's not a again, if you're making yourself your own mental point of origin, that never even really pops up. But one thing I wanted to say is that and this is a kind of a funny conversation that I think I've posted this before. I had a couple of my promo girls, I overheard them talking, and they were talking about having sex with a guy on the first date. And it was funny because one had asked the other, would you ever have sex with a guy on a first date? And she says, well, not if he was relationship material.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, so I'm thinking there, I'm going, so if the guy was this alpha dude who was, just there to fuck you, you're okay with having sex with him on the first date. But if he's a guy that you want to get with, and you want to make him work for what you would give away for free, and that's the kind of mentality. At first, when I heard that, as a guy, you kind of get a little pissed off and go, "What the fuck? These women are fucked up, right?" But really, when you think about that, it's a different set of programming that women sort of have with different guys. So yeah, in that sense, sure, yeah, the dark triad guy is going to probably get laid right then and there, whereas the guy who's going to work for it, the guy who's going to, in general, be the beta guy, and hopefully he's going to be the nice guy who kind of looks okay and has a little bit of game, that guy, she's going to make him wait. And they don't even see the duplicity in that, but when you think about it, yeah, sure, it pisses you off at first, but then you kind of have to understand the mechanics behind why they would think that way, because I think that at some point in the dual nature of hypergamy, the beta bucks guy is going to be the guy that's going to have to work for it, whereas the guy who is alpha, or the alpha fucks guy, is not going to have to work for it. And that kind of comes back to what we were saying before here, is that the beta guy, the guy who's going to have to work to be the guy not fucked on the first date, that guy is going to have to put her, I mean, she's already saying this to herself, is going to have to put her first. It's going to have to sublimate himself and sublimate his, repress his mental point of origin, or his needs and his priorities. He has to put her first. And I think that when guys think that way, they shoot themselves in the foot and they really screw themselves. That's one of the reasons I say don't wait for it. Or, if you're not getting laid by the third date, move on next. And that might seem really, cavalier, and might seem really ruthless. It's not. It's not even meant to be punishment. It's meant to be pragmatic. It's meant to be something that is, having a 3 strikes rule. I've got a couple of posts that are follow-ups to that, to the wait for it post, and one of them was a 3 strikes rule. And it's not meant to be punishment. It's not meant to say, well, fuck you, I'm gonna go off and do my own thing. It's not meant to be revenge. It's meant to be pragmatic. And really, if you are your own mental point of origin, that's the way you're going to think to begin with. That's why I say there is no allow. I'm not going to allow a woman to make me wait for something, because she's just simply compromising and mitigating her own genuine desire. And if I have anything less than 100% of your desire, I'm not the guy. I'm not the dude that you want to be with. I'm the guy that you want me to turn into. And that is when you start putting women as a priority. And women, the thing is those relationships don't end up successful. They don't end up for whatever successful means, but they don't end up with a man being the primary. They don't end up being a satisfying relationship for that man, because he's constantly having to qualify himself. He's constantly having to work himself up, and he's had to do it from day one when she wouldn't have sex with him on the first date.
I'm gonna share a story with some of the guys, because some of them mention like Tinder, right? The majority of the girls in the UK, they do use Tinder, right? They do, like the approaches on the street and shit like that, or in the bars and stuff like that, they don't happen as much as they did before, especially when it comes to young guys. So it's weird, and they're saying that women can find a new Tinder date within 15 minutes. And I'm like, yes, of course they can. And the kind of women you want to fuck, or I want to fuck, they're the kind of women, who, whenever they swipe right, they will get a match, right? So they're the kind of women that men want to, sleep with. And these kind of women always have guys on the go. And when I went out with one of them, I remember, when was it? That was like 4 or 5 weeks ago. I went out with this woman. 6 weeks? It doesn't matter. Right, I went out with her, and she just finished her date, right? So she went out with this guy, had a date, they ate together, they did whatever the fuck, I don't know, together, and she came out with me to have a drink. We're talking about like 11 at night. So we went out, sat down. I was careful with my diet, but I was like, I'll have a cheat day, I'll have a beer. I had a beer, forced her to have a beer even though she didn't drink beer, because I wanted to drink, by myself. I drank, we had a chat, kind of made out, freaked out some guys who were 50 years old, whatever. And I was like, okay, yeah, you need to go because you need to get back to work. You want to go now? Because she had to work the next morning. She's like, no, I want to spend the night with you. On her own, came up, we spent the night together, called in, cancelled work the next day, and then she just spent the entire day there. I mean, women do make allowances. If they like you, they will change their entire time schedule, their calendar and whatever. And that's how you know that that woman in particular is attracted to you. Now, they do this kind of shit with everyone. They do this kind of shit with everyone. They have guys on the go at all points in time. It is what it is, especially with Tinder and shit like that at the minute. And we need to understand this. I mean, if you're not down with this kind of things, if this kind of things bother you, then don't engage with them. I mean, that's the advice I'm gonna give.
What?
But
well, I mean, it's just the reality of the situation. I mean, that's the environment you find yourself in. I mean, yeah, okay, chicks find guys on Tinder. What are you going to do about it? How are you going to adjust your game to compensate for that? Are you just going to simply say, okay, I'm not going to fuck girls who are on Tinder? How are you going to know? I hear what you're saying. I've got part of a post where I think I came up with was women will make or excuse me, they'll break rules for alphas, but they will make more rules for betas. And when when a woman is making rules for you or trying to establish sort of a frame for herself, and okay, I'm going to have a relationship with you, but these are my conditions for having a relationship with you. Leave. That's it. Gone. You know, that there is that allowance once again that comes out. But again, when you come back to Tinder, or you come back, you don't have to be Tinder. I mean, there's online dating services. There's other stuff. There's always been stuff like that. I mean, there's always been tons and tons of different buffers for people to, you know, even when the free love generation was out in the 60s, technically, I mean, that's really the Tinder of the time. It's like people had such a, you know, the baby boom generation had such a laissez-faire attitude towards sex that, you know, that was the reality of the time. So what do? You're going to have to adapt to that. And if that's the deal that you if you want to engage in that, fine. If you don't engage in it. But that's just the reality.
Yeah, I mean, there is nothing you can do to change that. I mean, I don't understand why bothering with something that you cannot change. Why it causes you personal distress, the fact that a woman can find a Tinder date or whatever. Like, I had my Tinder apps and all of this shit installed on my phone, and the woman was moaning about me not uninstalling my apps, where she uninstalled everything, deleted all the people on her on her contact list and all of that stuff. I'm like, yeah, so what does that mean? I live my life however I want. If you don't want to stick around, go away. And I mean, I don't know how to make guys approach this. I mean, Scribbler said that I'm a bit of a natural. I don't know, because you know, I was in love before, I was disappointed before, you know, I went through, you know, horrible times before, etc. And your blog helped me a lot. And I told you this before, that I sent you a private message, I think like 2.5 years ago. Not a private message, like an email, telling you thank you for, you know, just putting certain things straight when he came to me, because the initial part of engaging with women, getting with women, and all of these things, like that was never a problem. It was when I went into relationships and when I had to stay with this woman for over a year and I was getting bored. That's when I didn't know how to go about my life. And I would fall back into like, oh, I need to be a nice guy just so that she shuts the fuck up. And it felt extremely unnatural to me, like I was wearing clothes that didn't fit properly. And that's what I want to say to people. Like, try to be comfortable. If you feel like you're not comfortable within your own skin, within the way that you interact with that woman, if it feels like it's not something that comes naturally, if that woman does not fit, like, I don't know how else to describe it. If she doesn't naturally fit in the way that your life is rolling, then she's not a woman that you want to keep around. You might just not want to keep women around in the first place. So just, you know, do things in the manner and in the time frame that you want to do them. Because if you're too busy, if you have things in your life, maybe women are not the kind of thing you want around at that point in time. And I can definitely understand that.
I read a lot of guys, at least in the MGTOW community, who say that, you know, well, I wake up every morning and I don't have a wife and I don't have a girlfriend, and I just do what I want to do. You know, I can get up and I can go see who I want to see, and I can go ride my motorcycle, and I can go, you know, whatever my hobbies are, I can do that, and I don't have to worry about, you know, being on call or being on demand or whatever. And then the thing is, that's great, man. I mean, that's awesome. If that's the way you want to live your life, good. But I will tell you right now that even for the past 20 years, there's not been a time where I haven't gone and done exactly what I wanted to do. I'm doing exactly what I want to do, and I happen to have a wife as well. And you know, I haven't been with her for 20 years because it's been such shit and such a horrible, miserable experience. I've been with her because I love her. She still looks great, and she still does all the things that I need her to do, and she's a compliment to my life. Tomorrow, I'm going to go get on my snowmobile, and I'm going to probably drive an hour out to a launch site, and I'll be gone all fucking day.
Yeah,
and my wife's not going to say shit about it because she knows that that's what I do. So it's not that you can't up and do. Dude, I have created 2 liquor brands in my that I have an ownership stake, and I've actually worked with dozens before that. But I create these things and I do things. I'm very creative, in my personal life. I have hobbies. I have things that I like to do, and you know what? I have one child by design because I know I'm like that. I don't want to say, oh well, I'm going to have like 8 kids and devote my entire life to having kids and being a good father and being a good parent and being a good husband and everything else like that. There's shit that I want to do, I certainly would love to. I don't have a motorcycle, but if I ever had one, I would just go and be happy to go off where I wanted to. When I went and did the Man in Demand conference, there was no, oh, where are you going? How long are you going to be there? Or there's nothing. She was just like, okay, when are you going to leave? And here's the plane tickets. So, Mrs. Tomasi knows what I do. She's read the book. She even reads the blog occasionally. So it's not like I'm strapped, or it's not like I'm bound to doing something that I don't want to do. I want to be married. I want to be in the situation that I'm in, and because it's satisfying and there's things that I can still do and I still have fun doing. Am I strapped to, I'm strapped to the house or whatever? No, I mean, shit has to get done. I still have to go and mow the lawn and pick up the dog shit, but, for the most part, I can do exactly what I want to do and when I want to do it, no questions asked. Because again, there is no allow, and my wife is a compliment, not a liability. So,
I mean, some guy said in the chat that MGTOW is about being comfortable on your own, and I would agree on that. I mean, the way that I see it is. The fact that I've done the MGTOW thing, I've been involved in the community, I've even gone like 6 months, I think, or almost completely ghost, like with a massive beard, wearing like scruffy, disgusting t-shirts and all that stuff. I was still approached by girls, but I just didn't want to engage with any of that. I just wanted to figure shit out on my own. And once you're comfortable on your own, once you have your circle of friends, you have things that you want to do, you have things like that, then I could see it as engaging with a woman, whether she's there or not. I'm comfortable and I'll be good no matter what. And that's how I came to terms with this thing that you were talking about having women that complement your life. Like they add something extra on top of whatever you already have. Right? So your life is good. It's good. It's enjoyable, and whatever she's there, slightly more enjoyable is how I see it. If it's not, if it doesn't fit, or if it's not at least more or less the same as it was before, then she's just causing you drama. She's causing you problems, and you don't need that kind of shit in your life. And I don't think the MGTOW way, or like the MGTOW mindset, is not complementary to this mindset that you promote on the website. Not at all. It's just that people might be too stuck on an opinion of like being on your own, or the risks involved, and being just either scared or just want to minimize the risk to 0%. I mean, if you can make that jump, or if you're young and you just want to live in a certain way, or if you're older and you want to live in a certain way, then you can just do it in a matter that works for you. I don't know what the way is, and I don't like to give personal advice, because I've had people that ask me about how they should talk with women, or how they should proceed in their personal lives, whether they should take that job or not take that job, and the answer is and will always be, what the fuck do you want to do? It's not up to me to make decisions for you. Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, it's about complementarity. It's about having that person or that woman be a complement to your life. Like when you were writing your, I guess I don't want to say it's your manifesto, but your rules for MGTOW, where you could probably rattle those off for me. But I think one of them was just never get married, and because there's too much risk involved. And I've said this before, that if I were to find myself single tomorrow, I would never get married again. I have learned a lot from being married, and I've learned enough that I don't want to have to get myself into another situation where I would have to develop, or model a woman into what I've got right now. I simply just wouldn't do that. pragmatically would not find that, you know, rewarding. So, but so a lot of people will say, well, so would you recommend men get married? And I would say certainly not in this, you know, in our social order right now, and certainly not. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you don't have to have a woman in your life. I mean, if you want to have a long-term relationship, if you want to spin plates, if you're married, if you already find yourself married, I think the most important thing to consider is how you go about that in a red pill manner, with your eyes open and with, you know, complete awareness of the situation. So, would I get married? No. Would I suggest people get married? No, absolutely not. But you know what? People are not going to listen to me. There are people in the chat room that right now that probably won't listen to me. Yeah. So, I mean, but anyways.
Being in MGTOW is about risk assessment. That's what people keep saying. So in order to avoid the risk 100%, you need to kind of like figure out a way, and that way is always to avoid women 100%. And being a healthcare professional, right? Being a doctor and all, just working with people in general, it kind of sounds to me, if you give that advice, it's kind of like trying to get people not to have babies really early on in their lives. And you're telling them the advice that, you know, the best way not to have babies is not to have sex, and that's your only option, and that's what you should be doing. I mean, the Catholic Church has tried that. HIV is going up. People are getting pregnant left and right, 14-year-olds, 15-year-olds. Doesn't. And in the UK, it's still happening. So the best thing to do is just give them ways in which they can like understand how things work. So I think condoms, contraceptives, all of these things, and I even give advice when it comes to contraceptives and stuff, so that they're aware of the kind of contraceptives that women can use and they can occasionally use in order to minimize their risk exposure when it comes to these things. I can of course not minimize the risk exposure completely. You can't. If you talk to a woman, if you engage with her, if you date them, if you sleep with them, there's going to be a risk there. I cannot take, let's say, responsibility for whatever each guy is doing in their lives. All I can say is like, yeah, this other stuff, do whatever you want with it. Use your genitals however you want. Do you think, I mean, we said we'll keep these chats short, yeah? Didn't we say that? Like an hour?
Yeah,
Has it been an hour?
We're at an hour right now.
Woohoo! Should we take questions or fuck them? Right, I
mean, let's do 10 minutes of questions, and then I gotta go feed my dogs.
There is a question here from Joe Lax. After taking the red pill, I'm no longer aroused by women I meet. I would like to mess around with women at least, but I just don't respond physiologically. Any advice?
Is it a red pill problem, or is it something else that's a problem? I don't know. It's hard to say, knowing what the guy is about and knowing what his problems are as far as being a red pill guy. I think that there's certainly going to be some hesitation to get involved with women once you are, especially if you're newly red pill. If you just sort of have gotten into reading my stuff, or you gotten into the manosphere just in general, and you seem, like I said, there's different stages. I call them the different stages of was it red pill or it's kind of like the stages of, you know, accepting death or accepting the death of your previous way of thinking about things. So yeah, I can certainly see that there's going to be some despondency with women before that. But I think what you have to do is sort of understand that, like, there is hope. There is a better, you know, there's a better, I don't know, a better way to do things. I would suggest that the guy certainly learns game. We've got a really good community of game teachers, I guess, in my comment threads. We got really and a bunch of other dudes. I think that as far as not being able to sexually function with is that what he was saying? He's not
aroused by them. I mean, if the I feel if there is no let's say physiological problem, let's say, and you can definitely go and get it checked out. I'm presuming you're talking about like your libido, that it must be a mental problem of sorts. And like you said, I mean, we can go through the stages and it's initially it's going to be denial, it's going to be anger, there's going to be bargaining, depression, and at the end it's going to be acceptance, right? You might be at the depression stage of accepting the red pill in general, and if you are there, then you have no interest in engaging with women at all,
right?
Yeah,
I think there's definitely a despondency that comes with that, and sort of I want to say an apathy that comes along with it too. Like where you're like thinking, why bother with anything? Because, because I'm not going to be able to have my idealized blue pill girlfriend. I'm not going to, I could fuck this girl, but it's never going to work out to be the Disney, dream that I had hoped for. So why even bother? So there's that apathy. And I think that if there's an apathy aspect to it, that could certainly be the part of it. But, I think that you need to move past that. You need to get a little bit deeper into, unplugging yourself, and you need to get a little bit deeper into sort of making the red pill internalized and making it your first order of business. So, like when you're dealing with women, understand what you're getting into. This is going to sound real bad, but know your enemy. Know what they're about. Get in their headspace, and make a red pill response your initial organic response. I guess that's the best I can say it is it gets better. I mean, there will come a time where I'll say he'll come around and sort of lose the apathy and say, you know what, I can make a better dream than the blue pill convinced me was possible. So, all right, what's the next one?
Scribbler is asking me, what do I think of Game? What do you mean? I like Game. I've been reading. I mean, even since the first book came out, The Game, I was reading about these things, and that's how I got involved in the communities. And I read about them, about all the tips and tricks and how to approach women and all that stuff, from the initial stages to the inner game stuff that Rollo, for example, is talking about, and spinning plates and all that. I find that personally the spinning plates worked best for me forever. I always did, no idea why. But it worked best for me just because I was never just the one woman. There were always like a couple of them on the go. So you just don't pay attention to any of them. So it works naturally.
I just read an article, and I think it was on an Australian news site of some sort, but they were going into about how game and pickup artistry is dead, and it's finally gone away. And they were citing the guys from I think it was Holistic Game and his coffee shop, and how they had been just eviscerated by social justice warriors. And I thought it was interesting that they would equate that with the death of game, and of course they went and did all these quotes from the book, from Neil Strauss's The Game, and I really think it's kind of ironic and a little bit funny to think that it's dying, or it's a dying art, or it's going away. I'm kind of glad that they're thinking that, because if it goes back underground, if it goes back into something that's that only a few really know about, or only a few people are doing, I think that's actually probably for the better, instead of saturating the whole manosphere with just game knowledge. I think that what's really telling is that here we are in 2016, and you got to understand that The Game was published in 2003, and all of the accounts that went on in that book with the pickup artists like Mystery and Strauss and the rest of the guys that are part of that whole scene, all of those accounts and all of those events happened between 2001 and 2002. So here we are in 2016, still using that as the gold standard for game, and that is it's funny and ironic in one sense, and it's sort of, I'm kind of glad to hear it, because the less people pay attention to it, the better, I think. So at least from a mainstream point of view.
Yeah, I mean, even at the beginning when I was reading about The Game as Neil Strauss was writing it in the book, I was like, I will never do this kind of shit. Cards, tricks, talk to fuck that. And you get just the essence of it, and you just go about it in your own way. And there was a guy who was asking a question as to what you should give as advice for someone who's still in college, like himself. And I think college, or university in general, is a primary place in which you can figure out who you are as a man, right? How you're gonna deal with your life, what kind of person you want to be, and you can experiment with things. You can experiment in the way that you approach women, in the way that you deal with relationships. You can figure out what feels more comfortable in your personality, and that's what I was doing. I mean, back in the day, until you figure out, yeah, I'm this person, and it's a point of time of experimentation. That's
I always give credit to the pickup artist sphere, I guess, for lack of a better term, and like RSD and these, you know, especially Tyler Durden and a lot of the guys I see on my site, like, yeah, really. And I have I think it's in the second book as well. I have a post that, you know, says Game Works, and that, you know, it's basically a history of game. And I think that if it weren't for game, there would be no red pill. There would be no, at least the subspheres, because a lot of the stuff that happens in game is really sort of the field testing for the psychology and the ideas and theories that red pill represents and puts out there. Half the reason that I got into writing what I do is because I have a second major. My second major was behavioral psychology, and I thought that it would really fit in pretty well to what I was seeing in the pickup artist community, because I could say, oh, well, that's operant conditioning right there, or oh, that's you know, positive reinforcement right there, and a lot of the stuff that I was seeing while I was in the university was becoming apparent to me in game circles. And so then I started taking up that, you know, seeing what they were field testing and what they were doing out with girls on the street. And granted, that's one thing that I think that game sort of gets pigeonholed into being just something that you do at a nightclub, or like for Nick Krauser, who's just going to do day game and hit on girls on the street. There's so much more applications to game than just that. There's so much more that you can experiment with, and I think that a lot of fear that guys have comes from that experimentation, because here we have these guys who become red pill aware, and yet they're scared shitless to put it into practice. And I think that red pill awareness and red pill ideology and red pill theory becomes practice when it is expressed through game. And so we take those experiments in game, and then we use that data to come back and, you know, refine and define new ideas in red pill awareness.
I'm going to ask you the last question, which is specifically for
All
you.
right.
It comes from Dwayne, right? We'll keep this short because I think you need to go, right? So it's from Dwayne. It says, Niko, I have a question for Rollo. What is your advice on getting over the burden of performance? I know what you're going to say, so yeah, let's listen to it.
What am I? Okay, I'll actually let you answer.
So no, it's your question, man. You can go on it, and I can just find the link.
Yeah, well, I get a lot of people think that it shouldn't even be called the burden of performance. They think it should be the privilege of performance, or they think it should be something that is a little bit more positive than a negative. I call it the burden of performance simply because men have it as a requirement, whereas women only have it as an option. Okay, so women can choose to perform, or they can choose not to perform, and they are still treated in the same, or they can at least still expect to be treated in the same manner, no matter what the outcome ends up being. Whereas when you are a man, burden of performance makes it something that you've got to do. As a man, I believe that we are more idealistic than women are by nature. I explain that at length in a lot of my posts. I say that in the sense that it's not a bad thing to be idealistic. It's just that you need to watch out for how that idealism is expressed and how it can be manipulated and exploited by people, not just women. It can be exploited by men as well. And I should also state that the burden of performance, while it is something that women find attractive, it is also not just about women finding it attractive. The burden of performance is something that I feel that men have to do. It's something that they've got to make themselves better. They've got to make themselves more than what they started with. Maybe that's ambition, maybe that's a career, maybe that's their passion, maybe that's, all the great things that MGTOW say they want to do instead of women. Great. You know what? Even whether or not you're pursuing women, or you're just entertaining women, or you're doing whatever, you're still going to perform. You're going to perform in some sense. So how do you get over that? I don't think there's any real getting over the burden of performance. You either measure up to it, or you make something better of yourself, or you end up, 50 years old and a meth addict in jail somewhere. Those are the guys who didn't do much with that burden. I think it is certainly a prospect. I think it's something that men should see in a positive light, and certainly not in a negative light. But again, I call it a burden because it's just something that men have to do, whereas women only have that option to deal with. So getting over it, getting over the burden of performance is making yourself into the person that you want to be, and making yourself more than what you started with. Guys who start with very humble beginnings, who become, superstars, athletes, or musicians, or artists, or leaders of industry, military commanders. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. And again, it comes back to what we were talking about with mental point of origin. Your performance burden should start from you rather than starting from someone else. That might be your parents. That might be you're going to be a dancing monkey for a woman. It should come from you. You should become who you want to be rather than who you think other people want you to be, because they will gladly make you into that. In fact, the world is littered with men who become who they are because they were told that that's what they were supposed to be. So I think that if there is a getting over the burden of performance, it's excelling at it. And it's excelling at it in the sense that you're doing what you want to do and you are successful at it. I like where I'm at in my life right now. I like what I'm doing. I like, I enjoy the benefits of having, accepted my performance burden and understanding what my strengths and what my weaknesses are. So I think that if you can do that, then that would be certainly excelling at your burden of performance. And then the other thing is I think a lot of guys get confused thinking that I mean that burden of performance is something that is done for women. And I'm saying right now that it is not something you do for women, and it should definitely not be something, but your performance will be judged and your character will be judged based on what you do with your life, because that, as a man, is something that you are going to have to deal with in your life. And women will find that attractive, will find that arousing, or will not find that attractive or not arousing, depending on what it is that you've done with yourself or haven't done with yourself. So as a byproduct, yes, there is female attraction or non-attraction, depending on what, how you go about expressing and maintaining that. Whether you accept that or not, that's what you're born into. That's the reality of the situation. So I don't really think there's any getting over it, but I do think that there can be excelling at it. So that's what I mean by it.
You, I have on the screen the Red Pill Balance post, which was kind of like the point that we wanted to get across on this stream as well. And glad that someone asked that question as well. Where I was talking about feelings and how to be comfortable in your own skin, etc. And you made a judgment on the burden of performance. You mentioned specifically the burden of performance that every man needs to have, and I completely agree. I mean, if you're a man, you get judged by what you do, about how good you are on the things that you do, about every single aspect of your life is going to be measured against something else, like a golden standard or whatever, right? And it's always going to be the case, and it's going to be by other men and by women. That's how men evaluate each other. There's no way around it. I'm not disagreeing with you at all, but there is a way, in a sense, because there are people who are stuck in jobs that they don't want to do. They hate their jobs, and right. They might be stuck in marriages that they're not really enjoying, etc. And if they don't want to take the next step, you can at least do things which I saw my father do, and things that you do as well. Like, you take time off, you go and do your own things, you do your hobbies, etc. and you relax. You can be on your own and you can contemplate about questions or stuff that you want to contemplate about. You can relax. and you can do that within a marriage, within relationships. You can do this on your own. It doesn't matter. The burden of performance never completely goes away. I don't think it matters whether there is a woman there or not, right? Because I judge myself on the kind of things that I do. I judge myself on how good I would be, you know, I am at my work. I take criticism at my work, and I try to be good to excellent in whatever I try to do, especially when it comes to my work life. So I don't think there is any way around it. I mean, it's the burden of performance is always there for every single man that's out there. And even if you don't judge other men, as I try not to judge men in what they want to do with their lives, as long as they're happy in general. I don't try not to judge them, but other men will do that. Other men will judge you, and other women will definitely judge you. So the burden of performance, even if you try to completely put it out of your mind, it's going to be there, and other people will evaluate you according to that. Now, if you give a shit about that, then it matters. If you don't give a shit about that, then it doesn't matter to you. But I find that men are the biggest, like, they judge themselves hardest than anyone else. Yeah.
They're their own worst critic. Yeah. Like I think it's a lot of people think that like what you were saying about, like, you know, have time for your hobbies, have time for, you know, relaxation. I take time off, of course. Tomorrow, like I said, I'm going off snowmobiling or something. But it's just you don't have to be this endlessly driven guy. I mean that I'm not really even a type A personality, per se, but I do understand and I do recognize that I do have a performance burden, and that there's something, and quite honestly, I like it. I'm glad I have it. I'm happy to say I embrace it, but it's not like it's this endless, drive to do stuff. I mean, I do what I do because I enjoy doing it. I love producing brands. I love doing promos. I like working, with the gambling industry and stuff too. I don't do stuff that I don't like to do, but I understand that there are people that do that. I understand that there's janitors and there's, cubicle workers and everything else. I get that, but I think that even in those situations, you still need to understand that there is a performance burden, and maybe there's another way that you can go about excelling in that, even in your worst situation. Obviously the best bet would be to get out of that situation and improve yourself in some way, shape, or form. But I think that accepting that and acknowledging that is half of it, because a lot of people, maybe they find themselves in those situations because they've never really accepted that, or they have developed their performance burden under someone else's approval or someone else's measurement. So I think that in that sense, I mean, those are tough spots, and you're going to have to really work to find a way to get out of that. But again, play to your strengths and do what you think is best for you. It took me a long time to figure out what it is that I did best. And that's one of the reasons I say, like, men don't become men until they're 30. And they don't really hit their, sexual market value peak until they get to be about, 35, 36 years old. And I say that in the sense that that's when they are found to be the most valuable, because generally that is when most men really kind of hit their stride, maturity-wise, intelligence-wise. They're better judges of character. They've had time to develop themselves in a career. They've had time to really hopefully understand, how the game is being played on them, and hopefully they have become red pill aware, and they understand better at that point and have gone through enough experience to be more value. And those men in those situations, when you look at the statistics, particularly on what women find attractive at that time, is when you're looking at a woman who's reaching her decline of her sexual market value, and men are reaching their apex of sexual market value, that's when they find that they are needed the most, and that's when they are found to be the most attractive, because they have had that time to become men, to have the ability to be to use amused mastery. And I don't really talk about that very much. I really think that that's a key point to game, is that having amused mastery. If you're going to play it off like you're have some sort of amusement at women, and that you have some sort of control, it's better that when you do have abuse mastery, that you have the shit to back it up with. So when you are 36, 37 years old, when I'm talking to, at myself at 47 years old, when I'm talking to women who are in their mid 20s, it's very easy. It comes very natural to me to be, to employ abuse mastery, because I've got the experience and I've got the, the maturity to back it up with. And I think that when it comes down to performance burden, that when you get into your later years and you realize that that was your performance burden, I think that accepting it earlier on puts you in a better position. So when you get to those later stages, those more mature stages of your life, that you have a better understanding of how women are, of how life works, how society works, how your job works, just being a more enriched man by that point. I think that that definitely plays into the performance burden.
Absolutely. Well, I completely agree, and I do agree that experience does give you an element of red pill knowledge, because I find personally my father to be very red pill aware. And that makes him, and that does come from experience and about just evaluating your partner and your life experiences when it comes to the world. And it does make you a lot more prone to understand what people expect of you and what people see in you, and you're a lot more comfortable with the role that you play in that domain. And it's good that we have people of varying ages even in the chat, and I'm glad that they're playing more or less nice with each other. I think in the next podcast or whatever we do here, such as it is a live stream, we'll move on to something a little bit. We'll move on to some more particular topics. But I'm glad we kind of got into the MGTOW side of things and took a few questions this time. Yeah. I think let's stop the stream here. Thank you very much for being here. Thanks to all the guys for watching this live. It's gonna be hopefully on the channel. Imagine if I just stop this and this completely gets lost. But I have backups, so don't you worry, guys. I cannot re-upload it in case this fails. Thank you very much. Thanks to everyone who's played nice with each other. I hope that continues, because I can't be fucked to moderate. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Any last words, man?
If they have, I was going to say, if anybody has any other questions or if they have any comments about this, I'm going to post the link to this on the next blog post, and I'm just going to do an open thread so people can post what they thought of it. And like I said, we're probably going to do this once a month, as time permits and everything. Today just happened to be a really good day, so I think that if we come up with some topics, or somebody wants to suggest topics, they can just lay it in my thread, or they can lay it on you too. So
yeah, that's it, and we'll decide.
It's been good.
Yeah, man, thanks. Let's stop this. How do I stop it?
I don't know.